Let's start that class. So let's create a function together. So we have a function called myfunc. Like I said, it's just a revision class. Return. So I have a function myfunc. Whenever I call on this function is Whenever I call on this function, it's going to do these three things. It's going to print hello, it's going to return, and it's going to print good evening. But we have to keep in mind that whenever we call on return, every code, in fact, when the Python sees this word return, every code after return is ignored. So when we call on this function, it will only print hello. It's not going to print good evening. So let's call on the function together. We have this. Next, what return does is that it's going to go back to the caller. It's going to return back to the caller. That is wherever you call on that function. So here we are saying that when you see this, go back to the caller, and this is the caller of that function. So it's going to return back to this place immediately. And while returning, it's going to return with a value. It's going to return with a value. It won't just return, but it will return with a value back to this same location. So I also explained in our last class that return is the same as saying return none. So the short form of saying return none is just to write the word return. So when you call on this function and it sees this, it will now return none back to the caller. It will return it back to this location. So I can now save it as a variable like this. So whatever it returns will be assigned to A. We can now print out A. So that should print out none. Next, I also explained in the last class that all functions automatically have return, whether it is written or not. When you call on this function, it will print hello, it will print good evening. When it's done, it will return none itself by default. It will return none. When it's done with everything inside that function, it will return none, and it will assign it to this A, then it will print A. Meaning, if return is not written, Python will assume that it is the last statement in that function. It's going to write it at the background. This is how Python will treat it. When it's done with everything, it will automatically return none. So whatever it returns now, you are assigning it to A, and here we are printing that return value. So this and this, they mean the same thing. Let's move on. I also explained that this is different from this. When you have this, what you are doing is you are saving this whole function as the value of A, such that A is also a function. A is also a function. But when you have this, you are only saving the return value as the value of A. So here we are printing out the return value. Let's now look at something that may look confusing to us, but it's still the same thing. Remember I said the return value here, let's just return a specific, let's return a value, let's say return 7. So remember I said the return value here is assigned, like it's going to be placed here, so that it's going to be assigned to A, such that when I say print A, it will print 7. So we can now do something interesting. We can say that instead of doing it like this, so what's the meaning of this? When you call on this function here, it's going to print hello. Meaning, of course, you know that calling on this function like this means that go and do whatever is inside this function. So it's going to print hello, it will print good evening, it will return 7. Whatever it returns will be placed inside this place. Then this line now will now print out 7. I come again. When you call on the function here, it's going to do whatever we have inside this function. It will print hello, it will print good evening, it will return 7. Whatever it returns will now be placed here. So this line can now print 7. So this is the same as saying something like this. It's the same as this. Here, when you call on it here, it will print hello, it will print good evening, it will return 7. Whatever it returns is going to be placed here, so that it's going to be assigned to A. Then you can now print out A. So you can now do it like this instead. You say the same thing. So when you call on it again, print hello, print good evening, return 7. The 7 will be returned back to this same spot. Then you can now print it out. So we have this result. So we can take advantage of that and just do some little trick here. I can say so I can say print so let's discuss let's discuss what happens here. When you say print this line, I am, this is STR. Of course, the reason for doing this STR is, let's imagine this is not there. Let's start with this. My func, you put 7 here. This 7 will be sent as the value of num. Then it's going to return num times 2. That is 7 times. Oh, sorry. When you call on my func here and you put 7 here, 7 will be sent as the value of num. This will return num times 2. That is 7 times 2. It's going to return 14 back to this place, such that you will now have I am 14 years old. Do we get the explanation?
Yes.
Okay. So we put 7 here. This 7 will be sent as the value of num. Then this will return num times 2, 14. The 14 will now be placed back at this exact spot. So that's going to now be I am 14 years old. But you know that you can't concatenate a string with a number, like with an integer like this. It's going to throw back an error. So in order to do that, we can convert this to str. So we're able to concatenate them together like this. So here I am 14 years old. For the next line, I can play with this again and say print there are so of course I convert it to string, so I'm able to play with it. So there are these 3 will be sent as the value of num. Then we return 3 times 2, 6. So this returns or gives a result of there are 6 shoes here. So we have this. Any question? Then we also discussed how to use the return to work in a way that is similar to the if else. If else, we can do something like this. If num, let's say, is greater than 4, then we can say print return. Then we can now come here and say print back. So we know that if the value of num is greater than 4, it will print good and it will return. With that, it's not going to read this line, it will just terminate here. But if this condition is not so, then it means that it's not going to enter this place, it will just jump to this place. So here it's as though we are using our return to do the work of if else. So instead of writing else, we just use the word return. here to make our uh, to we are making the tone to work in a way that is similar to else, in a way similar to else. I think this is summary of the return keyword. Please, if you have any issue with the return keyword, please can we ask? Is there any part of it that we don't understand? Okay. So like I said, we are not going to use it for now.
It's okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. So, for now, we are not going to use the return. We are not going to go to algorithm questions. It's going to take a lot of our time. So when we are done with everything, we now focus on algorithm questions alone and solve them then. Now, having stated that, our next class, please, I want us all to be present in our next class. In our next class, we are going to a new data type. We'll be talking about lists in our next class, lists, and we are going to start the loop. And we're going to look at what a loop is meant for. Please, let's all be present in that class. It's a very important class. The loop is a very important part of programming generally. Please, I beg us, please let's be present. It's going to be so interesting, and you're going to be writing loop starting from our next class. So today we are done with today's class. Like I said, uh, only Mr. Esson did my assignment or has completed my assignment. I don't want to, or I'm not going to give us new task. I'm not. I'm not. Please let's complete the pending assignment so that in our next class we can move forward. Like I said, I have a task at hand that I would have loved to give us, and then we'll see how to use. In fact, my plan was that I'll give us the task, then we do it without loop. I mean, with what we've learned so far. Then in our next class, we are now going to see how we can now use loop to make it better, to make it less stressful for us. But then since that would really show us the importance of the loop. But since you are here to complete the present one, there's no need adding a new one to it. There's no need adding a new one to it. Do you have any question before we call it a day? Observation?
Okay, my observation is that I can see that, as you are mentioning that, the number of people in the class has reduced maybe by two or three. I'm not sure. So I don't know why the number has reduced. Maybe we can reach out to them to confirm. Because the last class also, I think these are the only people present
Okay, sir.
during the
Alright, sir.
last class. And we're also having the same number of people now. So I don't know what you can do to at least bring them back to the class. And if there's something that maybe they don't agree with, they should let us know so that we can align and have the class back to where we started with.
Alright, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Any other question or observation? Okay. Alright, thank you very much. I appreciate you. Good night, everyone. Bye. Thank you very much.
Right.
Yes, sir. Bye.